million in paper checks for millions of other Americans won't start being sent out until April 24th as the government lacks their banking information. And some of those checks won't reach people until September, the document shows, underscoring the reality that many Americans could have to wait 5 months to receive their checks. 5 months! It's crazy. During a press briefing on Thursday, Steve Mnuchin, who just last week dismissed surging unemployment as, quote, not relevant, promised that Americans without direct deposit information on file would soon be able to receive a web portal to provide their banking details to the IRS. Patricia McLaughlin, a Treasury Department spokesperson, told the Post that the overwhelming majority of eligible Americans will receive stimulus packages or payments within the next 3 weeks, but progressive lawmakers and advocates are warning that the millions of vulnerable people, including those living under supplemental security income, SSI, and veteran pensions could fall through the cracks. This is unacceptable, said AOC, of this possible 5-month delay in an email to supporters late Thursday. This is not even remotely fast enough for the millions of working people who have seen their hours slashed, their expenses rise, and their government refuse to take sufficient action. I mean, they're going to get evicted waiting for these checks. Like, people are going to die waiting for these checks. It's 5 months we're talking about here. It's crazy town. With the Washington Post reporting the IRS draft plan would distribute paper checks to lower-income Americans first, prioritizing payments for individual taxpayers with incomes of less than $10,000 or incomes of $10,000 or less on April 24th, which I assume is probably going to be a lot more people than it was before. Checks for earners of $20,000 or less would be in the mail May 1st, followed by the those with incomes of $30,000 on May 8th, $40,000 on May 15th, and continuing in income increments of $10,000 each week. So the IRS plans to distribute around 5 million checks each week and slowly work it out by 10,000 as time goes on. So I don't know about that. That seems like it's going to take a while. It seems like there could be a little bit more of an efficient way to do that. Just possibly. There are additional members of our community living with additional burdens during this pandemic, says Chuck Marr, a senior director of federal tax policy in the Center for Budget and Policy Priorities, wrote in a blog post on Thursday, there's no reason to add that burden by making them navigate filling out a tax return when their government has all it needs to deposit a rebate in their bank account. As millions of people worry about payment delays, others, including many high school seniors, college students, and immigrant families, have learned in the past days they are not eligible for one-time $1,200 payments, which are part of a massive stimulus package President Trump signed into law last Friday. So, Aaron Klein, a fellow economic studies at the Brookings Institute, estimated Tuesday that 70 million Americans are likely to have to wait at least another month or more to receive their stimulus package because they didn't owe taxes and thus did not file a return in 2018 or 2019, or they did not use direct deposit for their tax refund. Despite being the largest economy on earth, we lack both the government-run real-time payments and universal bank accounts, systems common among developed countries, Klein noted. Americans shouldn't have to wait for Congress to act. Federal bank regulators have substantial authority to fix these problems. The Federal Reserve could require all checks under $5,000 to be immediately available to consumers, a power Congress delegated in 1980. So there is a way out of this, but the question is, will they take it? And I don't know about that. So, ultimately, when there's a will, there's a way. Klein wrote, the president appears to be more interested in putting his name on the check than getting it to Americans as quickly as possible. The response for COVID is exposing a lot of the problems ignored for too long and are at our basic banking and payment systems to this growing list. So it's a little bit of an update about when your checks may be coming. Here is another one. This is pretty crazy. As the DNC, they scheduled the Democratic National Convention itself to that's supposed to happen in Milwaukee. They have pushed it back due to public health concerns about the coronavirus. Even I think up until August 17th now, week of August 17th in Milwaukee, and they're trying to really structure it quite a bit better. So, what seems to be happening here is that seems like it makes sense. So it seems like it really makes sense. We're talking about Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And oh wait, isn't there a primary coming up pretty soon in Milwaukee, and the entire state of Wisconsin as a whole? They got to push that back, right? Wait, no, they're not pushing it back. They're still having it in the middle of a global health pandemic on April 7th. That is 4 days from now. That seems like it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So, the DNC, they're delaying a convention that was set to take place in Wisconsin in July, but the Democratic governor and the Republican legislature will not move or cancel the in-person portion of a primary that's happening there next Tuesday. So they're still going to go ahead with this. In a statement on Thursday, convention CEO Joel Somani said he was certain the show would go on, even though it was delayed. But this primary, though, is craziness. The proposed August rescheduling of the convention is hardly more certain to be safe than July, but there is no way to predict what stage that pandemic will be at that point. The former Vice President Joe Biden, who currently enjoys a substantial delegate lead over Bernie Sanders on Wednesday, suggested that delaying the convention to August would be necessary due to the outbreak. I think it clearly would be at this point, obviously. But the Times noted the coronavirus outbreak has thrown the entire nominating process into chaos, with multiple states postponing their primary due to the fact that we do have a pandemic going on. Crazy idea to try and postpone it. Democratic officials, including Tom Perez, who hoped that the party would have a nominee by late April, but with so many states postponing their primaries because of public health concerns about the coronavirus, Biden can't clinch the nomination until June at the earliest if Sanders remains in the race. On Wednesday, Sanders called on Wisconsin to delay its primary in the interest of public health, as Common Dreams reported. People should not be forced to put their lives on the line to vote, which is why 15 states are now following the advice of public health experts in delaying their statements. So something that he supports. There. Wisconsin state officials appeared determined on Thursday to go ahead with the in-person voting despite calls for delay. A coming court ruling on the elections is seen as likely to be in favor of keeping the schedule, but federal Judge William Conley on Wednesday nonetheless warned of public health consequences of the vote, and they really could be disastrous, implying the ramifications were on state lawmakers. So this is something that we have people like the National Teachers Union president in this country coming out and saying, in a state, by the way, with a lot of teachers, and a lot of very famously active union teachers, coming out there and saying that, go vote in the Democratic primary, get your hand sanitizer, get your sterile wipes, and go out there and vote for Joe Biden. Like, they're literally killing off their own base of voters. They're sending their voters to the polls, and some of them will very likely, once they get it, whether it be in Wisconsin, whether it be in Florida, whether it be in Illinois, all the other states that have already voted during this public health crisis, like, they're going to die. Like, there will be a group of people that have and had voted in the Democratic primaries will contract coronavirus, whether it be in poll workers or whether it be actual voters, and then come in and pass away before they're able to cast their vote for the eventual Democratic nominee to face Trump in November. Like, that's what they're doing, because it's just, they cannot cancel it. They cannot act in the rational standards of health. Because why? The shivering possibility that somehow the man from Vermont, who is down like a bunch in the delegate count right now, he may win, and that cannot happen under no circumstances. It cannot happen. Like, it's just these people, they need to be put in prison. Like, this is just criminal. It's criminal. There's no other way to put. This is just criminal. I mean, yeah. So, all right, I'm done. I'm done with that today. But we do have some good news. Newsflash, we'll be adding a third show per week. How about that? We are now Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Those are our scheduled release dates, Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday, for at least the duration of the pandemic. We will see you then. We got another show, everybody. That's the announcement. See you tonight for Uncultured.